Alright guys, TacticalRab back again today. Hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far. And with the streams for Scrim practice probably going off over the next couple of days, I believe the Boston guys have said they might keep them around for a little bit longer. But Dashy from OpTic has already given his opinion on this Boston team, suggesting that Vivid and Nero may well be onliners already just a few days into the title, and they might not do so well when it comes down to LAN. Very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I'd greatly appreciate it. It really helps out the channel. Thanks very much indeed for doing that. And this is the hydroelectric map if you guys aren't familiar with it. Quick note on Team Summertime here because they're putting together this $60,000 Pro Sim Invitational. So I'll just scroll through some of the teams here. But yeah, okay, it's Pro Sim type stuff. They have to use different weapons. The interesting thing to me is that the health they're bringing through. 130 health there'll be this tournament. A few other tweaks as well to the rule set to try and make it so that it actually plays, well, just give some good idea on what might play better. So we'll see if this actually works out in reality. Crimsix is playing. I hope at that point that he's actually gone to sleep and not still on this subathon that he still seems to be on at the moment. This guy's absolutely out of control. And yeah, these are some of the teams if you guys miss them or aren't familiar. I mean, this one, look, Doug, Methods, Joe, Destroy, and Lupo, pretty good fun. So yeah, they're going to try a few different things out. Scrappy's playing this tournament as well. You could expect the trash talk to be in short order when that is required. Quick note on some further scrims from last night. We had 6 maps played between the Minnesota Rokkr and the Los Angeles Guerrillas. It goes 4-2 in Rocker's favor here. They did win the hotel map, Los Angeles Guerrillas, and they did split the controls both in round 5. So we haven't really seen too much from LAG so far. Rokkr have looked like one of the more solid teams though, and yeah, LAG are not expected to really be a top contender in my eyes, but so far we haven't seen too much to say either way. But that's one scrim set that was going down. And also London, they won some maps, baby, let's go. They played Vegas last night, and it was 4-4 here. So they played 5 of the hard points through the entire rotation, and then 3 controls. Now, Farm 18, we talked earlier today about, okay, what's the control rotation? Will there be a third map? They're trying at Farm 18, and they think maybe that will work. It's unclear. I don't really like that map, but still, maybe for control, it's got some potential there. So, yeah, London win 2 of those controls, but it was 3-2 in favor of Vegas in the hard point. So excited for both of these teams going forward. I think that if Nasty and Nassim turn up, they've got potential, and we know that Vegas so far in this game have been looking pretty tasty as well. Let's talk about Crimsix. I thought this is pretty funny. This guy's on a crazy, like, subathon right now. I hope by the time this video goes live, he's actually gone to bed. But, I mean, this guy was going, honestly, out of control, bro. I guess the sleep deprivation is getting to him or something. But, I mean, it's kind of crazy what this guy was up to. What I did think was kind of funny, though, just speaking of Crimsix, is this particular comment here from Clayster. His new teammate, TJ, says the following. Crim said the way I play reminds him of Crim, because, you know, Clay doesn't want to take that kind of slander. I guess, in a way, it's a bit of a compliment, right? Clay and Crim, back in the Dallas Empire days, were kind of both the AR players in the team. They, I guess, did kind of similar things. I'm sure they learned from each other, even way back in the day in 2013 when they played with each other on Complexity, even through to the present day as it was on Dallas Empire a couple of years ago. New York Subliners didn't work out so well for them. The 4v4 environment might have been doomed to fail with those two teaming up again. It quickly went wrong. And look, Clay and Crim, I don't really know what their status is as kind of friends or whatever right now, because they obviously did get on. The greatest duo arguably still in COD history. You look at the numbers in terms of placings and wins and average placings, stuff like that. Like, these guys, when they have teams, have done incredibly well until the start of last season, to be honest. But yeah, I don't know if they've made up yet, because there was all the drama last season that Clay was trying to talk to Crim and get him to get on the phone. Crim didn't want to do it. So maybe it's not all sunshine and rainbows over there, and Clay is not so happy to be called, you know, referring to Crim's playstyle there, because TJ, of course, teamed with Crim back in the Black Ops 4 OpTic days as well. It's pretty interesting if, you know, TJ reckons that Clay has a pretty similar philosophy and mindset and the way he plays and sets up to Crimsix does. And honestly, that could be pretty beneficial for this team, because we know that Crimsix tends to form teams that if they don't win, they at least have a good chance to win. That's been the case for the last several years. There's some funny comments there from TJ, to be honest. Let's talk the minimap though, because one of the big talking points the last few days, the pros are really starting to get annoyed about this, right? Still in disbelief that COD in 2022 doesn't have red dots on the minimap. I saw this a few times yesterday in the Breaking Point Next tourney, where someone would just be sitting in a corner, he'd get 1 kill, and then the second guy coming in to get the trade would just not get the trade, because like he wouldn't, unless the comms are pinpoint perfect, he couldn't see him on the minimap, so we didn't really know where he was. And like that happened a few times, and I was like, damn, that guy's just, the comms terrible, like, is he faded? But then I was like, damn, yeah, he doesn't have a dot on the minimap to tell him where the guy is, so, you know, I can't really blame him for not knowing when it's such a niche spot and angle. Like, how's this teammate meant to call that out? So it's a bit of a tricky one, to be honest. We obviously wish red dots could return, but for now, it doesn't seem like it's going to be the case, and the pros are starting to get annoyed about it, and I can't exactly blame them. So Hamza Frosty says that apparently you can get around this. And we saw this the other day. There might be workarounds to actually get, put the red dots back on the minimap anyway. He reckons that there's a glitch, that they worded it wrong by saying constant. If you turn it on constant, it becomes the default minimap with red dots. Still not sure why we haven't realized this. Now, Clay says, I've noticed some inconsistency though when I've had it on with bots. I don't know if that was some silencer ghost thing or not. So there might be a way, I know that some people have said this, that if you put the constant on, it kind of works like the normal map, but there are some glitches. So I don't know, if the pros can like investigate this and make sure that it works with ghost or silencers or whatever you need to do to make the minimap work normally, then you can do that. The issue is if you put that as part of the rule set and then they actually update what it should be in the game, then the game is broken and the CDL rules are broken and you'd have to change them very quickly indeed. Otherwise, the red dots would be revealing everyone. But yeah, I think it's worth a go at least, and Clay seems to be on board with trying to give it a chance. And even as Arcitys says here, it actually sucks knowing my minimap became my headset. Just can't believe we got a scrim with no red dots right now. So look, Arcitys saying right now, he's hopeful maybe in due course that it will be gone. And as Crone says, red dots are right here, brother. You can turn it on to constants and it actually kind of works. But as he says, I know I'm just going with the flow, still looking for attachments right now. So yeah, wonder what the pros will decide to do over time, because clearly they are now aware that it is at least possible to get around the minimap issue if you know what you're doing and you do it in the right way. And if the pros do figure that out, then maybe by the time the CDL rule set, the actual CDL rule set comes along, then they could have a good idea as to what they might do about it. Or the developers can actually just fix their game. That would be kind of nice and allow it to be a normal option in custom games like we all want, even if they don't want to put it into the actual public lobbies for whatever reason that Seacon or the boys are going to come up with. So that's the update on the pros' frustrations with the game for now. Let's dive then into how things have been going with the OpTic guys, but also up against Boston, right? So they played a scrim set the other day. I think it was 4-4 between Boston and the OpTic guys. And yeah, Dashy with the M4 here with whatever disgusting class he's got on. The M4 is an interesting one because I think early people were talking about the Scar, right? Being like, yeah, that's the real weapon to use from an AR category. I think it's become clear that really the Scar isn't the best and the M4 is the way to go. And for all this talk from the pros that like, yeah, we're going to use the weaker weapons, now everyone's on the M4 grind and just absolutely melting people left, right and center. Like this, I think, is the gun to use. Some will still use the Scar, and I wish we saw more of it actually, because I think it's a probably more balanced weapon than the M4 is. But look, still, that's the way the pros are going to go. Whether any of them at some point agree to GA the M4, that's not out of the question, because we saw it back in Cold War with the XM4 getting GAs. Could be the same thing here, but of course, this is Modern Warfare. The M4 has been the dominant gun before, probably will be such again. But when they played Boston, Dashy had some interesting comments on Vivid and Nero. These guys, like, on point. These guys are one of the scariest SMG duos, I think, in the game. Incredible aggression you're going to get from Vivid and Nero. The question for Zed, their coach, has to answer is like, how do you calm these guys down? How do you make sure that they don't just run out and die? Because I think the issue was at times last season, Vivid and Nero, despite dropping good numbers in terms of engagements and the like, how impactful were their deaths? That's the question for Vivid. It's like, yeah, Vivid can do incredible stuff on the map, but if he just dies for free, then those engagement numbers aren't really delivering impact. So that's the question that Boston have to answer. But they were going rogue in this series. They're playing Fortress here, and Dashy was watching it thinking, damn, these guys are straight up onliners. The way they're killing me right now would not happen on LAN.
What's up with P1? These guys are insane online, I'll say it. One guy's P1.
Top word.
I'm going
go
right,
left, go
right.
left here, go left, go left.
Yeah.
Statue,
Wait,
yeah,
they can flip, yeah, flip.
they flip.
But just hold time in
They're
there.
buddies.
Son, Vivid. Oh my god.
Open up.
One guy's right.
So does Dashy have a point here, or is he just, having a laugh, joking around to some degree? We'll look at some of the numbers here in a second from these guys last season where we can. These were Vivid's kind of lineman cars last season. Unfortunately, I don't think I could find a full kind of LAN car, but these were Vivid's numbers. Like, honestly, interesting player, because we saw him back on Los Angeles Guerrillas in Cold War, and then he went to the Dallas Empire. Was a really impactful player, but within a certain system it works. Well, the numbers are never going to look great on Vivid. But Nero is an interesting one, because we've seen so far in this game, this guy's been out of control. Like, the amount of frying this guy does in certain situations is crazy. We saw what he was doing in that S&D tournament the other day, but these were his numbers last season for the full season. This is including online, 0.96, 0.88, 0.89, 77 overall. You look at his LAN card, it looks like this. Slightly lower, 74, with the numbers here pretty similar, but slightly lower across the board. And if you look at, kills per 10 minutes, pretty similar stuff. And, engagement rate is also going to be pretty similar across the board. So, yeah, I don't know. It's slightly different and slightly lower here on LAN for Nero than it was was online. Does that prove he's an onliner? Not necessarily, because on LAN, you can generally play some better competition. If you start in the winners bracket, for example, then you're going to generally play on average at LAN the better teams than you would online, with the preset matches and all that should theoretically average out online. So yeah, I don't know. It's interesting though, because certain play styles, there's always the argument there that, okay, certain play styles work better online than they do on LAN. Like generally slower AR, pre-aim heavy players, they will usually work better on LAN than online. Because online you get the slight inconsistencies in the latency, even though the CDL say they've got their whatever latency reduction tool, whatever it is they call it, right? And the online matches are starting pretty soon here on December the 2nd. On LAN, the game can slow down a little bit. The hit registration is largely a little bit better, and players also play slightly more cautious in general. So if you're completely cracked out, you're flying around corners, you're taking some ridiculous chows, you're probably not going to be able to get away with that as much on LAN when the game can really punish you compared to online. So that's been one of the key points on aggressive players like Nero and Vivid, that on LAN they're going to struggle more than online. They can't get away with the same stuff. Dashy might have a point to that degree, but it's also the argument that was leveled against Shotzzy right last season, and you know, the numbers on Shotzy's side don't exactly deny this, that online he was more of a presence than he was on LAN, arguably because, you know, you can't get away with quite the same crazy movement going for this ridiculous chow as you can in an online environment. So look, Dashy might have a point, but at the same time that accusation was leveled at Shotzzy last season. Not sure it was entirely valid for various reasons, but still it is a good point. Aggro SMG players are largely going to have a harder time on LAN. Does that mean that Boston are officially onliners and it's absolutely chalked for them on LAN? Definitely not necessarily, but it's an interesting point from Dashy already here, suggesting that these Boston guys already are going to be kind of an online warrior scrim team, good in the kind of qualifying matches, but when they go to LAN, it's not going to quite be the same thing. And we've seen earlier today that Beans was putting on a clinic last night in the Breaking Point Next tournament, so depending how Boston's season goes, certainly after Major 1, right? Because let's say Boston are pretty good online, they win a couple of their qualifiers, I think they play 4 qualifiers going into Major 1, so let's say they go 2-2 in those qualifiers, whoever they happen to play against, they go to LAN and they get top 12 or something. Like, what do Boston do in that situation? Because yeah, the team obviously hadn't in that situation started off particularly well. They've got Beans sitting there on the bench, Vivid and Nero, Awakening, Methods is the team of 4. They don't have TJ anymore to potentially provide some structure and leadership to those SMGs. Can Awakening and Methods be the leaders they need to kind of control their SMG players? It's a bit of a question right now. They've looked up and down in scrims the last few days. They looked kind of bad early on. They had some decent results against OpTic. Then last night they lost 6-1 to the New York Subliners. So kind of a question what happens for Boston to me. I'd be surprised if they make it through the season without a single roster change, certainly with Beans sitting there on the bench as he presently is. Cool little montage here that Pred's working on as well for, I guess, coming out sometime later today. And just to mention this from Brian Sats as well, some crazy numbers. Top 15 average LAN placements in the CDL era, minimum 6 LANs. So obviously some players, they come into the CDL, either place well or poorly, and then they dip straight out of there. These are the average placements though. So actually it's Simp, aBeZy, Cellium, Arcitys. I mean, look, that really is no surprise, the FaZe guys over the last couple of years. Interesting to me if Arcitys actually has the same numbers here as FaZe, just because I guess on the Huntsman days, like it was a slightly different story with where they were placing, but maybe this is still accurate to average it out in this way. Whatever the case is, it makes sense. Then iLLeY, Shotzzy right behind actually with Envoy, then Scump, then Octane. Dashy's down here, CleanX as well, of course, the Toronto guys makes a fair bit of sense to all the second places they got there. Major Maniac as well, largely due to the FaZe days, I guess, during Modern Warfare. But yes, iLLeY here with the 3rd highest, or the 2nd highest, I guess, and actually very close indeed to the FaZe guys, which I'm like, I suppose that does make sense looking especially at the Modern Warfare season. And even Dallas Empire in 2021 was not too shabby either. But very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care, and I'll see you next time.